You devastation. You mentioned, essentially what you do. But if no one has ever heard of HIAS, what is the most significant piece of your work?
Well, we were established in the 19th century to welcome Jews who were fleeing persecution from Russia, from Eastern Europe. And we've made a transformation since that time from being an organization that, in partnership with the American Jewish community and with the United States government, welcoming refugees to the United States, setting them up in their new homes, helping them get acclimated in new communities. We do this across the country. We do it in Pittsburgh. We do it in partnership with hundreds of synagogues around the country as well. And we also work overseas, helping keep refugees safe where they are.
This is your work. This is also the work that this madman decided to target. He targeted your organization online, describing HIAS's overall efforts as, quote, sugar-coated evil. And in his final post, he said he believed HIAS has, quote, brought in invaders who were killing his people. Your reaction to that?
Well, what we do is we help the United States government bring in refugees in partnership with the American Jewish community. We know what it's like to be a refugee people. And so this is what we do. Refugees are people who are fleeing terror. They're not people who bring terror. And because the American Jewish community owes its very existence to those times when America opened its doors to refugees, we feel the obligation now to continue that and to welcome others who are refugees today.
Let me ask you this about one of the things President Trump said earlier today is suggested now that places of worship should now have armed guards. And my question to you is how is that even realistic? Putting armed guards in our synagogues and in our churches and in our mosques here in America?
I think that's a misdiagnosis of the problem. I think regardless of the practicality or the image that projects, the problem here is hate. The problem is there is a growing space in this country for hate speech. And hate speech always turns into hate actions. And that's what we are seeing again and again this week. And that's where our focus needs to be, is in fighting hate. We can't stand by as individuals or as organizations or as governments when people spew hatred against Jews, against refugees, against Latinos, against any group that some might see as the other.
Why do you think it's growing? Last question.
It's growing around the world. And there's a rise in nativism. There's a real fear of the other. And I think we've been too nice in allowing people to get away with hateful statements. We can't anymore. And I have to say that today, when there was, during President Trump's remarks, he repeatedly invoked anti-Semitism. Anti-Semitism was the motivation for this killing. But this killer equated Jews with welcoming refugees. This is about fighting all hate. Fighting hate against refugees, against Jews, against anybody who is seen as being the other.
Mark Hatfield, President and CEO of HIAS. Thank you, sir, so much.
Thank you.
Today's deadly mass shooting capping off an incredibly difficult week filled with tragic incidents, many fueled by hate. So coming up next, we'll talk to the director at the Center for the Study of Hate and Extremism to try to understand why this is happening.
Heartburn and gas? Fight both fast. Tums Chewy Bites with Gas Relief. All-in-one relief of heartburn and gas. Tums Chewy Bites with Gas Relief.
Oh, Eric. I didn't know you were with the UPS store.
Yeah. We printed that sign.
I thought you just did shipping.
Oh, no. We do printing, packing, notarizing, faxing, shredding, mailboxing, taping, laminating, consulting, trading, designing, returning, and, of course, shipping.
I can't feel my legs.
I should really get him home.
From printing to packing to mailboxing, go to the UPS store for everything your small business needs. And, of course, shipping.
Wondering how Mommy and Daddy keep it fresh? We're slingers. You heard that right, boss. We sling.
Hey, kids. Want to sling with us?
The freedom is exhilarating.
Woo!
Nick, Megan, hey, we talked about this, right?
I remember.
Okay, thank you.
Folks, we got a big couch that will fit all 4 of us.
We could beanbag it if that's more your jazz.
Sorry, guys.
Sling TV is the live TV you love with no long-term contracts. Only $25 a month. Watch 7 days free at slingtv.com.
Is it possible to save someone's life thousands of miles away? Yes. Thanks to the dedicated technicians of the American Red Cross, who worked with VMware to develop technologies to help redirect the flow of blood to the areas and people needing it most, helping them recover and refilling everyone with life-affirming hope. Magic can't make digital transformation happen, but we can. That's the power of VMware, part of Dell Technologies.
COPD makes it hard to breathe. So to breathe better, I go with a Noro.
COPD tries to say go this way. I say I'll go my own way with a Noro.
Once Daily Anoro contains 2 medicines called bronchodilators that work together to significantly improve lung function all day and all night. Anoro is not for asthma. It contains a type of medicine that increases risk of death in people with asthma. The risk is unknown in COPD. Anoro won't replace rescue inhalers for sudden symptoms and should not be used more than once a day. Tell your doctor if you have a heart condition, high blood pressure, glaucoma, prostate, bladder, or urinary problems. These may worsen with Anoro. Call your doctor if you have worsened breathing, chest pain, mouth or tongue swelling, problems urinating, vision changes, or eye pain while taking Anoro.
Ask your doctor about a Noro.
See if you're eligible to pay no more than $10 a month.
Endless Shrimp is on at Red Lobster. For just $15.99, you get all the shrimp you want, any way you want them. And now, savory Parmesan Shrimp Scampi is back. New Sesame Ginger Shrimp is here too. But hurry in, Endless Shrimp ends November 18th.
On the next Parts Unknown.
So I'm ready anytime.
Go behind the scenes with the people who knew Tony best, the crew of Parts Unknown.
It really was the adventure of a lifetime.
New Anthony Bourdain Parts Unknown, tomorrow at 9 on CNN.
Not getting enough cash back with that credit card? Turn to the nerds. Want to invest that bonus? Turn to the nerds. Looking for the perfect mortgage? Turn to the nerds. Oops, sorry about that. Hey there, need a travel rewards card? Turn. Auto loan? 2. Want a lower interest rate? The nerds. The experts at NerdWallet make it easy to make smart money moves. Compare credit cards, mortgages, savings accounts, and more at nerdwallet.com.
Tammy here just got the Ring alarm. Professionally monitored security for just $10 a month. Now she has to break it to her old home security company.
Hey, Tammy.
Hi, Frank.
You wanted to talk to me?
Yeah, it's over.
What?
Yeah, I'm just tired of the contracts and the fine print.
Service fees.
Right, service fees.
Oh, who's gonna protect your house? Ring?
Break free from home security contracts with the new Ring alarm. Learn more at ring.com.
This is Life with Lisa Lang. Tomorrow night at 10 on CNN.
Welcome back to our breaking news coverage here. I'm Brooke Baldwin, covering this mass shooting at a synagogue, the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. And it goes without saying that the last 72 hours have been traumatizing for America. You look back to just this past Wednesday, police say a white supremacist gunman walked into a grocery store in Kentucky, killed 2 African Americans, the victims seemingly chosen at random. You have what happened Friday. A right-wing extremist was apprehended in Florida after this nationwide manhunt. Law enforcement officials accuse him of mailing those 13 pipe bombs to people across the country, mostly high-profile politicians, including 2 former presidents. Those recipients, all people President Trump had singled out for criticizing him. And now today, this man who spewed anti-Semitic views online opened fire in a sanctuary in a synagogue, killing 11 worshipers. A painful week by any measure. With me now, Brian Levin. He's a director of the Center for the Study of Hate and Extremism. And Brian, I mean, sitting through this week, you know, it's been filled with attacks on people because of their skin color, because of their religious beliefs, because of their political views. How do you interpret what is going on?
We see today. One last thing. Far right-wing extremism
is the most ascendant in a rising tide of a diverse threat matrix.
What do we do about it?
First, tone down the rhetoric. One thing our research has shown is that sometimes, but not always, divisive rhetoric by political leaders actually correlates to increases in hate crime. Moreover, we have seen extremists, and we haven't seen this before, become supportive of mainstream politics and mainstream politicians. Those who are in that orbit have to disassociate themselves from these hate groups and these ideologies root and branch.
How do you dial down the rhetoric when so much of it is coming from the top?
That's a problem. And give you an example. We saw that after the Muslim ban proposal, 5 days after the San Bernardino terrorist attacks, hate crime spiked against Muslims above and beyond the spike that we saw from the terror attacks. Same things with the Syrian refugees. But when President Bush spoke of tolerance, 6 days after 9/11, hate crimes dropped against Muslims by 2/3 the next day. We have to now promote the idea that we're an inclusive society and that certain things like a free press and freedom of religion are central themes of our American creed.
That's the message I want you to leave the world with tonight. Brian Levin, thank you so much. I appreciate you and your expertise and your message. And before we go to break, just a reminder from one of the nation's most beloved entertainers about what in the end must come out of such a tough day. The actor Tom Hanks sent this message out on social media, writing, quote, "Again, to me, this photo is the spirit of Pittsburgh with a broken heart today for those in Squirrel Hill." And he signs it Hanks. The photo shows a sign saying, "Love thy neighbor, no exceptions." Hanks is actually making a film in the city of Pittsburgh, so that explains perhaps part of his sentiment tonight. Special coverage continues right after this.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Now for my latest hit. $3 entrees right now at Ruby Tuesday, and all you gotta do is buy that garden bar, baby. Yeah! Do you guys get it? If you buy the garden bar, you get a $3 entree. $3 entrees right now at Ruby Tuesday.
Our old TV provider decided to stop providing our school's games.
So I bought this bad boy. Road trips every Saturday.
But that Dish guy said switch to Dish. You get every major D1 football game right here at home.
Stay home and get every major D1 game with Dish.
Jordian's asked, when it comes to managing your type 2 diabetes, what matters to you? Step up to the stage here. Feeling good about that? Let's see. Most of you say lower A1C, but only a few of you are thinking about your heart. Fact is, even though it helps to manage A1C, type 2 diabetes still increases your risk of a fatal heart attack or stroke. Jardiance is the only type 2 diabetes pill with a life-saving cardiovascular benefit for adults who have type 2 diabetes and heart disease. Jardiance significantly reduces the risk of dying from a cardiovascular event and lowers A1C with diet and exercise. Let's give it another try.
Jardiance can cause serious side effects, including dehydration. This may cause you to feel dizzy, faint, or lightheaded, or weak upon standing. Ketoacidosis is a serious side effect that may be fatal. Symptoms include nausea, vomiting, stomach pain, tiredness, and trouble breathing. Stop taking Jardiance and call your doctor right away if you have symptoms of ketoacidosis or an allergic reaction. Symptoms of an allergic reaction include rash, swelling, and difficulty breathing or swallowing. Do not take Jardiance if you are on dialysis or have severe kidney problems. Other side effects are sudden kidney problems, genital yeast infections, increased bad cholesterol, and urinary tract infections, which may be serious. Taking Jardiance with a sulfonylurea or insulin may cause low blood sugar. Tell your doctor about all the medicines you take and if you have any medical conditions.
So, what do you think?
Well, I'm definitely thinking differently than I was yesterday.
Ask your doctor about Jardiance and get to the heart of what matters.
Heavenly hand cream.
Heavenly hand cream? My hands get so dry and cracked, I need serious relief. That's why I use O'Keeffe's Working Hands. It's America's #1 selling hand cream for guaranteed relief of dry, cracked hands. Thanks to O'Keeffe's, I got my hands back.
It's time for family gatherings, to stretch imaginations, to get together, or find some time alone. It's time for a Four Seasons sunroom that lets you have it all for less money than you thought. Right now, for a limited time, all Four Seasons sunrooms are up to 25% off, with no money down and no interest for 12 months. Call Four Seasons today. Four Seasons. It's time.
From pro football superstar to convicted murderer, what led to Aaron Hernandez's downfall?
This was a man whose brain was profoundly damaged.
And what secrets did he take to his grave? How it really happened with Hill Harper, tomorrow night at 8.
When you rent a car on Turo, you're renting from a real person. No shuttle rides, no waiting in line, and no wandering a car lot. This is your rental counter. And this is you, already on the road. With Turo, this is compact, standard, and full size. This is better than your typical car rental. This is Turo. Download the app today.
You can get anything instantly with an app, even toilet paper. But what about someone to fix your toilet? Thumbtack's the app that finds you people fast. See prices, reviews, and chat with local pros right in the app. Download Thumbtack today.
I'm not ready to lose my hair. Not now. But I never thought there was a real solution. Now I use Keeps, the easiest way to keep my hair. And I can get my treatment without leaving the couch. Go to Keeps.com to learn more.
New Anthony Bourdain Parts Unknown, tomorrow at 9 on CNN.
Closed captioning brought to you by OnlyMeso.com.
Mesothelioma, it's all we do. With 7 offices across the country, let us come meet with you. Call us at 1-800-213-8000.
This is CNN Breaking News.
You are watching CNN special coverage here of this tragedy in Pittsburgh. I'm Brooke Baldwin. We are covering the deadliest attack on the Jewish community in U.S. history. This is according to the Anti-Defamation League, or the ADL. 11 people murdered, 6 wounded, including 4 police officers during a time of prayer and celebration inside a place of worship. The Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. But as the nation has seen before, when the worst in humanity erupts, the best of humanity shines through. A swarm of supporters just descending upon the Squirrel Hill neighborhood tonight, singing Hebrew songs of worship in solidarity.
Sorry about that. I was going to get your camera.
Hours earlier, just before 10 in the morning on the East Coast, the sounds were so heartbreakingly different. As police say, the gunman walked into this synagogue, Shabbat services, everyone allowed in. He opened fire. And moments before he walked in, he posted online that he couldn't sit by and, quote, watch my people get slaughtered. Then this came over the 911 dispatch.
Okay, be advised, suspect's crawling, he's injured. Not even 3 yards. SWAT's talking to him. Tell him to continue to crawl at this time. 7-1 suspect's talking about all these Jews need to die. We're still communicating with them. 9 radio. Okay, be advised, we got
the victims, but to you on the investigation piece, the shooting suspect, we know he was hit. I understand he's in fair condition. Is he cooperating? What more do we know about him?
So investigators are not saying at this moment if Robert Bowser, this 46-year-old who they say is responsible for this shooting, is cooperating. But we know that he was shot several times, and they say he was responsible for the deaths of 11 people and injuring 6 others. We're 11 hours on now from this shooting at the Tree of Life Synagogue, and we're getting a clearer picture of the man they say is responsible and of the attack. Now, the FBI is in control of this investigation, supported by state and local authorities as well. All the way at the top, the Department of Justice there, the Attorney General Jeff Sessions says that there will be hate crime charges filed in this case, and they have the evidence, they say, starting at the beginning of the timeline today at 9:49 a.m., where you mentioned a social media post in which he referenced a Jewish support group, a Jewish refugee support group, and says that members were bringing invaders, as he called them, into the country, killing his people, and he wrote, quote, according to law enforcement officials, screw your optics, I'm going in. Then 5 minutes later, the calls started to come in from the synagogue of the shooting. A minute after that, authorities say that the first Pittsburgh uniformed officer showed up, but by then They say that Bowers had already shot and killed those 11 people, and then that officer was injured. Another officer was injured. 2 SWAT officers also were injured. We're told that this entire thing, from start to finish, the moment he walked in to the moment he was taken out, lasted 20 minutes, and that in those 20 minutes he had 4 weapons with him, an assault weapon and 3 handguns. Not clear if he used all 4 of those. Investigators say that they are not aware of any history with him. They had no history, of him being involved with the local law enforcement, but of course they're getting to know him right now. They do believe he worked alone. And as it relates to charges, the U.S. attorney who's in charge of the Western District here in Pennsylvania says those charges could come as soon as this evening. So the investigation here and the footprint around us right now is large because this is a large crime scene. They, of course, will be going through his home, through his car, to try to find out more about the man they say is responsible for this mass killing, Brooke.
Of course. Victor, thank you so much in this community, covering the investigative piece of all of this. But now to just those survivors. Again, 6 people survived. They were wounded. 2 of them are listed in critical condition this evening, including a police officer. So Jean Casares is covering that for us. She's at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. And Jean, just give us a sense of how these survivors are doing.
Well, we are right outside the Level 1 Trauma Center, and there are several of them here in Pittsburgh. But as you said, 2 of the surviving victims, and there are 6 surviving victims, 2 of them are in critical condition tonight. One, a 70-year-old male who had multiple gunshot wounds to his torso, affecting major organs. He has undergone, we know tonight, a second surgery. We do not know his status at this point, but he is in one of the trauma centers. The other is the 55-year-old police officer in critical condition, multiple gunshot wounds, once again, this one to his extremities. We also know there is a 61-year-old female victim who is in the hospital tonight in the trauma center, along with another police officer. And right here at this trauma center, which is the University of Pittsburgh Mercy Hospital, a 27-year-old police officer. Now, there is some bright news. One of the 6 surviving victims was released from the hospital tonight. That would be a police officer. But that is the update that we have tonight of only 6 surviving victims. And tomorrow morning at 9:30, we understand, according from the mayor of Pittsburgh, the names of those that perished in this attack, the 11 victims that did not survive, their names will become public.
Okay, Jean, thank you so much. Investigators are trying to learn more about this shooter. Federal agents swooping in on the apartment complex where this man lived. Miguel Marquez is outside his home. Miguel, what do you know?
Yeah, so they've been in there for several hours now. They actually, taking no chances, had the bomb squad go in first with a robot to make sure that there was nothing in there that could harm them as they went about their work. But there are federal agents in the apartment right now. They've been coming and going, bringing things in and then taking other equipment in to the house. We spoke to a neighbor who says that he lived here for about 2 years. He was here off and on. He'd be here for a few days and a few days off. Said that he told his fiance that he was a truck driver. The only thing odd, he said this was a relatively normal guy, kept to himself, didn't see him very much, would wave, didn't seem unfriendly, didn't seem particularly friendly. The only thing that seemed odd is that he watched TV at fairly loud volumes because his neighbor could hear it, usually cable news or some sort of news program at very odd hours of the day or night, but seemed like he was a fairly normal guy and was just shocked to hear that this is the guy who is suspected of doing this. 17 days before that, Mr. Bowers quoted, "Hayas likes to bring invaders to kill our people." Hayas is a Jewish refugee advocacy group that held a national refugee Shabbat last weekend. That was 17 days before. He posted a video that Hayas, the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society that does help resettle immigrants, seemed very concerned about Hayas and the caravan in Central America and Mexico, and that it was coming up this way, and that Hayas had been on the border of Mexico He posted a video that Hayes has made about that and seemed very, very concerned about that 17 days before this event. So authorities just now really digging into his life. Brooke?
Miguel, thank you for that. We've got some breaking news. I want to pull away from you and go to these two guys sitting to my right, Shimon Prokopez and Josh Campbell here on the charges. So now 29 counts.
That's right, Brooke. 29 counts just in now. The Department of Justice, the U.S. Attorney's Office in Pittsburgh filing the charges, saying that a judge just signed a criminal complaint charging Robert Bowers with 29 counts, setting forth federal crimes of violence and firearms offenses. The statement goes on to say the crimes of violence are based upon the federal civil rights laws prohibiting hate crimes, and that the FBI in Pittsburgh is leading the investigation. And just to go over what some of these counts are with you, Brooke, it's 11 counts of obstruction of exercise of religious beliefs resulting in death, 11 counts of use of firearm to commit murder during and in relation to a crime of violence, 4 counts of obstruction of exercise of religious beliefs resulting in bodily injury, and then 3 counts of use of discharge of a firearm during the and in relation to a crime. So there you go. All the counts. The most important thing, obviously, is that he's now charged with a hate crime, federal civil rights violations.
Which is what we heard from Jeff Sessions that they
Which
would
is
file.
the most significant charge in all of this. And finally, they say they're going to have a press conference tomorrow at 9 a.m. In Pittsburgh, where they're going to release more information. The criminal complaint will have a lot more information. It looks like that's remains sealed at this moment, but that's going to have kind of the crux of, at least, of what they have so far found. A lot more detail that we're looking for behind the motivation. Perhaps, I mean, what sparked this today? Clearly, this is not a person who's held these beliefs. Clearly, it's a person who's held these beliefs for quite some time. But what sparked this today? That's still something that hasn't been answered.
And it would be very interesting. I mean, obviously, the U.S. Department of Justice bringing the full weight of federal law to bear here with this person. What will be interesting as we get that underlying supporting affidavit tomorrow, the more lengthy document that's sworn out by an FBI agent in front of a judge, is do they include the social media information that they've come across? If you remember...
Which they did, as we were talking yesterday, about the pipe bomb suspect.
Exactly. The pipe bomber, that was a key aspect of that, to be able to look through his digital footprint, to use that as evidence. Now, to be sure, the government doesn't have to include that information. I mean, this is sufficient enough based on what we've seen at the scene itself. But again, that will tell us a lot about the mindset of investigators and prosecutors if they start, digging into that social media history and then entering that at least as information that they're using initially to charge.
And also his words, right? We know what he was saying at the scene.
At the scene and after his arrest.
That's right. So those words will likely be included in any of the charges in the criminal complaint. That's usually, once it's unsealed. And also, if he was cooperating, maybe he made some statements that they decide that they want to include.
I want to ask about that because, okay, so he was shot, right? We determined that he was in the synagogue for 20 entire minutes, which is a long time. He tries to go out one of the exits. He's confronted by a member of law enforcement. Law enforcement, hits him. The suspect's in fair condition. Law enforcement, member, I think that particular officer is okay. Nevertheless, he's now presumably in a hospital, presumably surrounded by law enforcement. What are they doing with him right now?
So when you have a subject that's been injured and is now receiving medical treatment, this is the type of incident where you're going to have high-level scrutiny with the Department of Justice, with prosecutors, because the question is, at what point does this person be presented in front of a judge? That has to happen. And usually, take out the fact that he was injured. If it was just an arrest, officers would have that period of time before they had to turn him over where they can ask questions, try to get him to cooperate, talk to him. It's a lot different when he's been injured because the clock is ticking. Will officers have that opportunity to talk to him? Does he even want to talk? Can he talk? That's a big question. We'll also, I'm sure, find out tomorrow morning at what point or how rapid prosecutors are going to move forward with, presenting him that arraignment.
What are next steps?
So there'll be a presentment. It could be tomorrow, but more likely Monday in Pittsburgh. He'll see a judge. He probably would not enter a plea on his first court date. It's a presentment. They lay out the case. His attorney's there. Also, keep in mind, once he's charged, usually what happens is, if he was cooperating, once he's charged, it's usually the cooperation would stop because then the lawyer would get assigned to him.
Sure.
So, we don't know if he was cooperating in this case. We'll see, obviously. So he'll appear in court. If he's in the hospital, they may have to delay the court appearance, or sometimes they do bedside arraignments. We don't know if that would apply in this case. It could if he's that seriously injured. And then, they'll set a court date. and then there'll be a more formal court proceeding where we may hear a plea. There'll have to be an indictment, maybe by sometime next week. The next step would be that they would present evidence to a grand jury where he would be indicted, and then they would proceed forward. And then there's going to be a question of the death penalty and whether or not he faces a death penalty in this case. And that ultimately becomes really the decision of the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions.
Yeah, and we have to remember that, everything dealing with the subject, that's one aspect of this investigation. But throughout the night into tomorrow and the coming days, FBI agents, law enforcement officers, multi-agency effort will be digging into the subject's past, identifying associates, identifying family members, perhaps friends, co-workers, his colleagues. We've received, information indicating that he has this history in the trucking industry as a commercial driver's license. Are there associates that they'd want to talk to? Again, trying to get in the mindset, is this someone that maybe they can glean additional information about and talking to these people? That's all going on. And then lastly, we heard earlier from Bob Jones, the special agent in charge there in Pittsburgh, that they're actually sending resources from Washington to Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh area, from the FBI's Quantico facility. He mentioned they have their evidence technicians that will be coming, victim specialists coming to care for the family members, obviously, and friends of the victims, as well as the survivors. But then also this technical capability resources, again, to try to dig into this person's footprint. So bottom line, my point here is that this is one aspect, the subject himself, but law enforcement officers have a lot of work ahead of them to really build out the full portrait of who this person was.
I also think one of the important things, this is what the FBI, I think, in these situations does so well, is that they build out a timeline. They go back days, weeks, months, maybe in this case even years, to see what happened here. Where did this person turn? And most important, what was going on in the last few days? We see this a lot in terrorism cases where they go back and they want to know, who was he communicating with? Who was he talking to, whether it's cell phone, email, the Gab stuff? Who was receiving that? Did someone else know something here was going on? And that really goes also beyond just this case. Law enforcement is always learning, trying to learn, did they make a mistake here somewhere? Did they miss something?
Right.
Is there a misstep here? That's going to be critical in this investigation.
On the Gap stuff, I mean, for people who are just tuning in and are reeling with this news, as we all are, there's this social media site that you may not be familiar with called Gab.com, Gab.com, where he was, putting out all of this anti-Semitic material for. Do we know how far back that went?
So our team is digging into that right now.
Okay.
I mean, the question is, when people put stuff out on social media, this is, an outward manifestation of their beliefs. They want people to know. And it appears, the fact that we can go in and read these things, our investigative team tells us that this was out there, in the public ether. The question is, how far does it go back? And that's something that we're really going to be digging into. Perhaps, it's obviously very striking what the tone of some of this verbiage, but even the timeline, like Shimon was talking about earlier, the fact that some of these messages were so recent, up right to the point minutes before the attack.
As he essentially walked in the synagogue.
Yeah, it's incredible. Interesting you talk about this site. I mean, this is something we had our senior media correspondent Brian Salter was on earlier talking about. This is a platform that's known, for the alt-right and white supremacists and really a lot of questionable material.
That's why they flock to this.
They tout themselves as this company, I guess, that doesn't they don't take down hate speech. Twitter would,
Facebook would,
other social media sites. They sort of say, hey, you go on there, you say whatever you want to say. I mean, there are some limitations, but they basically allow people to say whatever they want, and and that's how they build themselves. It's about free speech, and you say whatever you want. There is a lot of stuff on there. I've certainly never heard of this before. I mean, many of us were surprised. I wonder if law enforcement knows about it, and if that is something that they monitor on their own.
There's so much to...
So law enforcement doesn't have the resources to just troll through everything online, but this is a platform that's familiar with them. It's been around for a couple years now. The company boasts some 500,000 users, so they say. What will be interesting, though, knowing that this is their business model, that they're providing a platform where this material can exist without the filters that, say, a Twitter has or a Facebook that they try to police to the extent that they can some of these platforms. What will be fascinating is if law enforcement hits that company with a search warrant or a grand jury subpoena.
And what else they could find.
And what else they can find. I mean, they're compelled to do so, to cooperate, but how much material they actually maintain and retain that will then be available to investigators is something that's yet to be seen.
They'll be forced to.
I mean, they can fight it, obviously. Anyone, you can fight a subpoena, but yeah, they would be forced to. I mean, it's also good. It now really puts them in the forefront, right? Many of us didn't know that this even existed. Well, hey, now we do. So we'll see how they react to it. It's really disturbing, and it's sad at all the things that he was saying, and you know, there's so much more to learn about this guy. For law enforcement, I think that it's going to be an important step, especially with everything that's going on in this country right now.
I think we can be prepared for a little more frustration because we know, I mean, how many of these have the three of us covered where someone comes out and says, yeah, this is exactly the kind of person we expected would do this kind of thing.
Saw the messages, tried to alert someone, and you know, nothing in the end happened. Again, the Anti-Defamation League, the ADL, saying they believe this is the deadliest attack on the Jewish community in the history of the United States. Gentlemen, thank you so much for all of that information. And again, facing 29 counts, setting forth federal crimes of violence and firearms offenses against this individual, Robert Bowers of Baldwin, Pennsylvania. Ahead, we will talk to two journalists from Pittsburgh following today's shooting to get their take on how this community, Squirrel Hill, how they're doing. We'll be right back.
I used to book my hotel room on those travel sites, but there was always a catch. Like somehow you'd wind up getting less. But now I book at Hilton.com and I get all these great perks. I got to select my room from the floor plan. Very nice. I know, I'm good at picking stuff. Free Wi-Fi, laptop by the pool is a bold choice, and the price match guarantee.
How do you know all this? You like some magical Hilton fairy?
It's just here on the Hilton app. Just available to the public, so. Book at Hilton.com and get the Hilton price match guarantee. If you find a lower rate, we match it and give you 25% off that stay.
I'm Ken Jacobus. I'm the owner of Good Start Packaging. We distribute environmentally friendly packaging for restaurants, and we've grown substantially. So I switched to the Spark Cash Card from Capital One. I earn unlimited 2% cash back on everything I buy. And last year, I earned $36,000 in cash back. That's right, $36,000, which I used to offer health insurance to my employees. My unlimited 2% cash back is more than just a perk. It's our health care. Can I say it? What's in your wallet?
Are we there yet?
You don't always use your smartphone for directions.
Okay, guys, out there.
Or to laugh out loud.
You're in the middle. Yeah.
But when it matters most, you count on TracFone to keep you connected for less. Our smartphone plan gives you talk, text, and data with unlimited carryover starting at $15 a month. No contract. All with nationwide 4G LTE coverage. Get top smartphones or bring your own phone. TracFone for moments that matter.
My longtime client Mark asked me to help his daughter. Abby took a job in Chicago and wanted financial advice. We talked about her goals and set up a savings strategy so she can enjoy life now and start planning for tomorrow. I'm looking forward to working with Abby and helping her reach her goals, like I've been doing with her dad for years. With the right financial advisor, life can be brilliant. Ameriprise Financial.
For that. And just a second, we also have the Mendez mediation. And Brian is going to take the lead. Just follow his. Hello.
Success is a numbers game, and you're not going to win if you keep telling yourself to wait. The more often that you choose courage, the more likely you'll succeed.
The most inspiring minds, the most compelling stories. Download Audible and listen for a change.
Election Night in America, Tuesday, November 6th on CNN.
We talked about the investigation and the charges. I want to talk now about this Pittsburgh community. This community devastated, heartbroken in mourning after 11 of their own were killed in a shooting at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. My next guest, both on the phone with me tonight on this Saturday evening, I have David Shribman. He is the executive editor of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, and Jim Busis is the CEO and publisher of the Pittsburgh Jewish Chronicle. And gentlemen, thank you both for being with me. And our hearts are heavy for this community. David, if I may, I just want to start with you. Your piece in the Post-Gazette nearly had my producer and I in tears. How poignant, how close you are to this community, and how you open the whole piece talking about, you know, after that church in Charleston, South Carolina, after the Islamic Center in Quebec City, you write, "We knew it could happen here." Can you tell me about the call you got this morning?
Well, I got a call actually from somebody who had just driven by, and we knew this could happen here. And in fact, by here I mean 3 blocks from home. I was driving right by there. My wife was unable to get home. This is a corner we traverse on a weekend probably 5, 6, 8 times. It's part of the landscape of our minds and the landscape of this community in a way that few others. This is the heart of the community. Pittsburgh and Squirrel Hill beat at that corner.
And Jim, it's my understanding you were at this vigil this evening held at a nearby Presbyterian church. Can you just take us inside and tell us a little bit about the emotion that I'm sure was flowing?
Yes, I should say that from what I understand, it's the first of what will be any number of vigils. And it was actually organized by students from the local high school, which is in the center of the neighborhood and has a large number of Jewish students. And it was organized at an intersection which is, we colloquially call the center of the universe, which is really the center of the Jewish community. There happens to be a church there. There's also the JCC there. The people were quiet and solemn, and I would say not defiant, but certainly not subdued. People were really thinking, I think, towards action. And at one point, the crowd broke into a chant of vote, vote, vote.
Really?
Yeah.
Less than about a week and a half away from those midterm elections. And maybe on that point, David, what do you think, what caused this? What caused this?
What caused this? We'll never know the full answer to what caused this. We'll never know what's in the hearts and minds of this fellow who did this. All we know what's in the grieving hearts and befuddled minds of our neighbors. Jim Bustis lives near me. We all live right at that corner. That's on TV right there. I was there picking up a prescription. We won't know. We'll never know. It's the questions and not the answers that beguile us and that haunt us right now.
Jim, we heard from President Trump earlier today, and part of his message was, well, we must put armed guards. Had there been an armed guard at the synagogue, and we must put armed guards at our places of worship. And I'm just, whether it's a synagogue or a church or a mosque, is that even realistic to do across this country?
Well, I think you have to think about the problem in two parts. One of it is the universal access to guns and the problems that causes. But the other is the deep-rooted anti-Semitism, which has existed for a very, very long time. On the gun part of it, it seems inconceivable that we could protect every synagogue, church, and mosque in this country. And so I think there have to be other policy alternatives. But, of course, we all know that what was Columbine under the Clinton administration, this has been going on for decades, and no one has come up with any sensible policy solution.
I would add, if I might here,
Please.
that, and Jim, I think, will affirm this, that Jews in Pittsburgh live with remarkable ease, comfort, and security. Here, the parade to prayer of Orthodox Jews in black hats and black wigs down Whiteman Street on Friday nights is totally unremarkable. Here, the Jewish Community Center is actually the community center. About 40% of the members aren't Jewish at all. Here, Jim's own newspaper, the Jewish Chronicle, which has its origins before the Industrial Revolution even. It's full of advertisements, even for secular places. This is the place of ease and comfort and what university students sometimes call safe places. This is the ultimate Jewish safe place. Unlike every place else in America, unlike New York, unlike Philadelphia, unlike other places, Jewish life here did not migrate to the suburbs. It's right here at the corner of Murray and Forbes.
And David, if I can stay with you, because I think your point at the end of your piece, I want you to make this on CNN here. Your piece with the saying that in our grief we need something to steady us, and you reflect on where the synagogue's name comes from. Can you explain the Tree of Life?
Well, Tree of Life is a passage from Proverbs that lent its name to this place of tragedy here, and it's a reference to the metaphor that describes Judaism's most sacred text, the Torah, as itself a tree of life. And it's transliterated in Hebrew as Eitz Hayim. There's a transliteration for those who don't read Hebrew, and it translates this way. It is a tree of life to all who hold fast to it. Its ways are ways of pleasantness, and all its paths are peace. That's a poignant message on a night like this.
I just wanted to end our conversation on that, and its paths are peace. David Tribman, Jim Busis, again, our condolences to this beautiful community. Thank you so much. I appreciate both of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
We'll be right back.
Nothing outlasts Energizer Ultimate Lithium. Hey, you can't do that. Can he do that?
Yeah, he's good.
Energizer Ultimate Lithium. It's the #1 longest lasting battery.
I never knew there was a different solution to my constipation until my doctor recommended Miralax. Stimulant laxatives forcefully stimulate the nerves in your colon. Miralax works with the water in your body, unblocking your system naturally.
Miralax now available in single-serve mix-and packs.
At Dewar's, all our whiskies are aged, blended, and aged again. It's the reason our whiskey is so extraordinarily smooth. Dewar's, double aged for extra smoothness.
On the next Parts Unknown.
So I'm ready anytime.
Go behind the scenes with the people who knew Tony best, the crew of Parts Unknown.
The #1 question I get at parties, did you eat all the stuff that Tony ate?
Never before seen footage and stories from around the world.
Are you filming?
Getting a 6-person crew to the South Pole was one of the hardest.
Take 2? We don't do take 2s.
It really was the adventure of a lifetime.
New Anthony Bourdain, Parts Unknown, tomorrow at 9 on CNN.
So in 2012, I found out that I had a tumor in my heart while I was pregnant.
I was seeing patients with sarcomas, tumors of soft tissues.
I needed a treatment that didn't exist yet.
I realized I couldn't just wait for a new treatment option. I had to find one.
It spread everywhere.
I had to make this change.
On the 6-month scans, it was totally different.
We were amazed to see that her tumors had begun to shrink.
She pulled the scans up and we all just were like,
Brittany was really the breakthrough moment for me.
They had melted my cancer away.
She is about as close to being NED, or no evidence of disease, as anyone can be. That is what is so important about Conquer Cancer.
Conquer Cancer funded the doctor that saved my life.
There is a possibility that we might be able to communicate with Grandma.
Welcome back. You're watching CNN special live coverage here of this tragedy in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. The Jewish community and a nation is in mourning this evening. The ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, releasing a statement saying that the Pittsburgh synagogue shooting is likely the deadliest attack on Jews in United States history. And joining me now is the CEO of the Anti-Defamation League, Jonathan Greenblatt. Jonathan, thank you so much for being with me. A powerful, devastating sentiment. I mean, can you, how devastating is this for you?
Well, this is, as you mentioned at the top, this is the most lethal and violent attack on the Jewish community in America in the history of this country.
Just stop for a second on that. That is profound and profoundly sad.
It is sad, and Brooke, it will be more sad tomorrow as the stories of the victims come out. And what I've heard already is heartbreaking, and I think first and foremost our thoughts need to go out to the families and the victims who went into a synagogue to worship, who went into a synagogue to pray, and there was a bris taking place. You know, this is the ceremony.
There was a bris.
That's right. It was
ceremony.
a bris.
Go ahead and explain what a bris is.
When a boy baby is born, a male baby is born, 8 days into its life, it's brought to the synagogue for a service where the baby gets its name. And at this moment of hope, suddenly there was this act of horror where a man ran into the synagogue with automatic weapons and murdered in cold blood 11 people. Whose only crime, of course, whose only offense, of course, was that they were Jewish and that they were praying. So it's hard to imagine something more despicable and I think just very sad overall. And make no mistake, it's an attack on the Jewish community, but it's an attack on our country. These are all our values. These are all our children. This is any one of us.
The bris that was happening in the baby boy, we understand the 11 people who were killed were all adults. Yeah. I know that law enforcement, I believe the mayor said they're going to be releasing names tomorrow morning. Of what you know that you can share.
Well, I think the bottom line is these were moms and dads. These were people and families with children. These were, again, people who came together on a Saturday to pray and to worship. This is not what should have happened. This is not something we can tolerate. And look, whether it's, let's keep in mind, 2012, a Sikh Gurdwara, a Sikh temple was attacked in Oak Creek, Illinois, Wisconsin. People were murdered. And in the summer of 2015, that's the black synagogue, the black church in
Mother Emanuel
AME Church in Charleston. People were murdered in cold blood.
As they were praying with their eyes closed.
The notion that our houses of worship become houses of slaughter is the kind of thing we should not tolerate. We cannot accept.
What do you, the Jewish high holidays, Rosh Hashanah, Yom Kippur, there already is police presence and security around synagogues because the Jewish people are so highly targeted and hated in this country by a number of extremists. You can't put armed guards at every synagogue and church and mosque in this country. You can't do that.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
Well, you're not wrong. I mean, it's a sad state of affairs when specifically for a moment, like every Jewish institution, synagogue, school, community center, many offices like our offices at the ADL, we all have security of some kind. This synagogue, which didn't have an armed guard, imagine that they had done active shooter drills. And thankfully, those saved lives. They happened a few months before, coordinated by the local federation.
They had.
They had. And they saved lives today. But can you imagine? I mean, you think you're going to go to synagogue or church to learn how to pray, not to learn how to run, to learn how to worship, not how to shelter in place. So this is unacceptable.
I have numbers, I know you know these by heart, but the ADL found 1,986 cases of harassment, vandalism, or physical assaults against Jewish people or institutions. This is in 2017. It was 1,267 in 2016, so that uptick.
Yeah.
Where is that coming from?
Look, we've been tracking hate crimes generally and specifically anti-Semitic incidents for almost 40 years at the ADL. And we've seen a steady decline over the last 15 years until 2016, when there was a 34% spike. And then last year, a 57% increase on that number, the single largest surge that we've ever seen in the history of this organization.
Why?
So these are acts of vandalism and violence and harassment.
Why?
I think there are multiple factors at play. Again, as you said before, Jews have always been targeted. Jews are more subject to hate crimes than any other religious minority in the country. In addition, the climate that we're in, where conspiracies are taking root, where people believe globalists are somehow trying to destroy U.S. sovereignty. It's no accident that in Charlottesville last year, a rally that was about Confederate statues degenerated into a melee where the crowd chanted, "Jews will not replace us." And all of these factors, the polarization, the tension, the scapegoating, it's then all further amplified by social media. Literally, we just released a report yesterday where we called out the increased incitement that we've seen on Twitter in particular against Jewish public figures, ahead of this midterm election. It's absolutely terrifying to think we were talking about this yesterday, and then today, this man, and we know what he was doing on Gab and on Twitter, took guns, 3 guns into a synagogue and murdered 11 people in cold blood.
I was just talking to a friend whose mother is afraid of stepping foot in a synagogue now. What is your message as these moms and dads were at Shabbat services this morning, where anyone was allowed in on a Saturday morning? What is your message to the Jewish community tonight?
Yeah, Brooke, I learned about this incident when I walked out of my own synagogue this morning, and I looked at my phone as I walked out the door. So, but I will tell you this, we cannot let the white supremacists, we cannot let the bigots and the haters win. So we need to introduce security protocols at all of our synagogues and any house of worship, as I said before. And we need our leaders to lead and to call this out when it happens, immediately, intentionally, and honestly.
What do you want them to say, specifically?
To say that hate has no place in our country. To say that we can't imagine a world in which this country isn't appreciated for what it is, the most diverse, the most enriched country in the world. And I think our Jewish community, along with our Muslim community, along with our Sikh community, along with all of our Christian and those who don't even worship, we're all in this together. And I wish that our elected leaders would remind us of that and turn down the rhetoric. That's what we need.
Jonathan Greenblatt, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We'll be right back. Thank you.
If you live with diabetes, why fingerstick when you can scan? With the Freestyle Libre 14-day system, a continuous glucose monitor, you can check your glucose levels anytime without fingersticks. With the Freestyle Libre 14-day system, just scan the sensor and manage your diabetes. You can do it without fingersticks. Ask your doctor to write a prescription for the new Freestyle Libre 14-day system. Learn more at freestylelibre.us.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Now for my latest hit. $3 entrees right now at Ruby Tuesday, and all you gotta do is buy that garden bar, baby. Yeah! Do you guys get it? If you buy the garden bar, you get a $3 entree. $3 entrees right now at Ruby Tuesday.
Stop dancing around the pain that's keeping you awake. Advil PM gives tossing and turning a rest and silences aches and pains. Fall asleep faster, stay asleep longer with Advil PM.
What is love? 2 hearts, 1 soul, a kiss, a hug, a laugh. It's passion. It's freedom. It's mystery. It's the journey and the destination. It's vows made and promises kept. It's a feeling, a need, no rules. All included, all unlimited. Feed your hunger, quench your thirst, live your dreams. Fulfilled, indulged, reborn. What is love? Love is all you need. Call 1-800-SANDALS.
Uh-oh, renters.
Welcome to the Bare Feet Retreat. Every week, a new guest unpacks their baggage.
I caught a baby dragon. I think that's a scorpion. Oh, man.
The Guest Book. All new Tuesdays at 10:30 on TBS and the app.
Do you use catheters? Are you using the catheter that's really best for you?
Oh, yeah. For years, I'd been using one kind of catheter, and I never knew that there were other really great catheters available until Liberator sent me samples to try. If I had not tried the samples from Liberator, I might never have found the perfect catheter for me. Liberator Medical sent me a catheter that was easier for me to use right out of the package. Now that I've found the best catheter for me, it's made my life much easier. My catheters were completely paid for, not a dime out of my pocket.
There are so many innovative catheters. Get the best catheter for you. Call Liberator Medical. Get your free catheter sample pack.
Call 1-800-860-1960. That's 1-800-860-1960.
How do you feel when someone is looking over your shoulder? Not all snoopers can be seen. Cyber criminals can steal your sensitive information. Hackers can intercept your data on public Wi-Fi. But not with the NordVPN app. It helps protect your privacy by encrypting your online data, and it's so easy to use. NordVPN, your shield from online snoopers. Download and enjoy trusted internet security and privacy.
The Lead with Jake Tapper, Monday starting at 4 Eastern on CNN.
Closed captioning brought to you by Page Publishing. We help publish, distribute, and sell your book.
Have you written a book and want it published? Thousands of authors have with Page Publishing. If we decide to publish you, your work ends and ours begins.
Call for your free author submission kit.
The man accused of today's massacre inside of a Pittsburgh synagogue wrote multiple postings online spewing hate against Jewish people, blaming them for helping refugees, even criticizing President Trump for surrounding himself with too many Jewish people. With me now, Samantha Vinograd is a CNN national security analyst. And let's just start with these postings on Gab.com, something I hadn't been familiar with this. Apparently it's a popular spot for bigots,
people get kicked off of Twitter, right?
Exactly. And talk to me about his postings, and specifically what he said about Hayes.
Well, Brooke, one of the most disturbing things about the incident today was that it was preventable. This man was not a sleeper. He wasn't keeping to himself. He had a large digital footprint that painted a record of a man obsessed with hurting a minority group, Jews. And so in this case, you just have to wonder why Twitter wasn't aware, why Gab wasn't aware. We know that Gab likes to propagate these alt-right conspiracy theories, hate speech, and no one took them down. No one said anything. And for me personally, my father's a Holocaust survivor, and something that he's always taught me is if you hear hate, even if it's not directed against you, speak up. Because if there's no one left to speak up, then it's allowed to fester. And so many people could have said something about this man, whether it's the digital platforms or people he interacted with, and somehow no one did, and we ended up with the massacre today.
You just said your father survived the Holocaust.
Yes.
I just want that to sink in for people watching. We see you on all the time covering national security issues. Your father survived the Holocaust. This is personal for you.
It's personal for me, it's personal for my father, it's personal for Jews around the country, but I've also heard from so many people from different religions today. And I would say this, if this attack had happened at a mosque or a church or any other place of worship, this is an attack against people based upon their faith. The Jewish people are no stranger to violence. It has really plagued us since the beginning of time. Genocides, pogroms, the Holocaust. Many of us have encountered threats, not every day, but in our daily lives. So this is nothing new. There is something different, though, Brooke.
What is that?
We have leadership in this country that propagate conspiracy theories about Jews, conspiracy theories about refugees, conspiracy theories about migrants. That is what's different. The hatred that fills some people's hearts, which is inexplicable to you and to me, that's not new. But when people hear from their leadership these conspiracy theories that spread false information, that's unfortunately having an impact and ending in brutal circumstances.
That's the difference between before and today and hearing the head of the ADL sitting in that chair a second ago, Jonathan, saying, needing to hear leaders, needing to hear people at the top say enough is enough, really call it out specifically, all this hate and this hate speech in this country. You took to Twitter today, the Mourner's Kaddish. It is a Jewish prayer mourning loved ones who've passed. Tell me why you tweeted out every single word.
I tweeted out the words, as you mentioned, Brooke. It's a prayer that we say when someone dies, when you're in mourning and on the anniversary of someone's death. I'm horrified by what happened today, as most Americans and people around the world are. And we are mourning the death of so many Americans today. They were Jews, but they were also Americans. We're mourning that, but I also think we need to use this as a lesson going forward to, again, speak up. If you hear someone using hate speech, that could so quickly turn into a hate crime, as we saw today. How many more of these incidences do we have to go through? You and I cover these stories, whether it's against African Americans or Jews or Muslims. Where is this going to end? The only hope that we have is each of us using our voice in whatever way we can to speak against it and to mourn what happened and to, in that way, look forward. And in my faith, we often say never again and never forget about the Holocaust. But how many stories have you covered where we both had tears in our eyes and said never again and never forget? And my only hope is that out of this, everybody starts finding their voice and using it.
Thank you for that.
Thanks, Brooke.
Sam Vinograd, thank you. Before we go to break, we are hearing from leaders and hearing their reaction to this tragedy. Former President Bill Clinton tweeted this hour: "I mourn those murdered at the Tree of Life Synagogue and pray for the wounded. We must all send an unequivocal message that the violence and hatred that has been unleashed and fanned across America will not be tolerated. It won't end until we stop it." We'll be right back.
Building a better bank starts with looking at something old and saying, really? So Capital One is building something completely new. Capital One Cafes. Inviting places with people here to help you, not sell you. And savings and checking accounts with no fees or minimums, because that's how it should be. You can open one from right here or anywhere in 5 minutes. Seriously, 5 minutes. This is banking reimagined. What's in your wallet?
Discovery. No, just a sec.
What would it look like if we listened more? Could the right voice, the right set of words, bring us all just a little closer? Get us to open up, even push us further? It could, if we took the time to listen. The most inspiring minds, the most compelling stories. Download Audible and listen for a change.
Do you ever feel spirit approaching you?
If you had a chance to talk to a deceased loved one, would you?
She'd been living 17 years without closure. Yeah.
He actually wants to apologize to you.
To be able to get over this guilt, it's been a long time coming.
This is life beyond death.
There is a possibility that we might be able to communicate with Grandma.
This is Life with Lisa Lang. Tomorrow night at 10 on CNN.
Now is the time to get the body you've always wanted at Sonobello, America's #1 cosmetic surgery specialist. To celebrate our 10th anniversary, for the first time ever, we're offering you exclusive access to our employee-only pricing.
Before Sonobello, this is what I used to look like. This is what I look like now. It's hard sometimes to believe that's me. Is that my body? Wow, cool.
Using advanced microlaser technology, Sonobello's board-certified plastic surgeons can remove unwanted fat in as little as 1 day, with minimal downtime. Even stubborn areas like stomach, thighs, and love handles. Call 888-470-4969. Now, for a free consultation and take advantage of our 10th anniversary exclusive employee-only pricing. Payment plans available. Don't miss out on your chance to take advantage of employee-only pricing from Sonobello. This is a limited time offer. Call 888-470-4969 now.
When you rent a car on Turo, you're renting from a real person. No shuttle rides, no waiting in line, and no wandering a car lot. This is your rental counter. And this is you, already on the road. With Turo, this is compact, standard, and full size. This is better than your typical car rental. This is Turo. Download the app today.
New Anthony Bourdain Parts Unknown, tomorrow at 9 on CNN.
The attack on the Pittsburgh synagogue is sending shockwaves certainly around the world. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau and German Chancellor Angela Merkel condemned the attack and offered condolences to the U.S. Jewish community. Meantime, in Israel, Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu says he is heartbroken and appalled. And our correspondent, Oren Lieberman, is live for us this evening in Jerusalem. And Oren, you tell me, what's the reaction you're hearing there?
Brooke, we've heard so many responses from so many different Israeli politicians, officials, leaders, as well as Jewish community leaders who either live here or were here for some sort of vacation or some sort of trip. And the sentiment from all of them is very similar. An attack on a Jewish community anywhere is an attack on the entire Jewish community everywhere. And that is at the center of the messages we're seeing. It was the middle of Sabbath services in Pittsburgh, 7 hours ahead here, just the time zone difference. It was coming towards the end of the Sabbath. It had already been a difficult weekend here with a sharp escalation between Israel and Gaza, and that was already weighing on everyone's mind. Then, just as the Sabbath was coming to an end, news of the shooting at the Pittsburgh synagogue came through here, and that is when the messages started coming out, including this one from Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
I was heartbroken and appalled by the murderous attack on the Pittsburgh synagogue today. The entire people of Israel grieve with the families of the dead. We stand together with the Jewish community of Pittsburgh. We stand together with the American people in the face of this horrendous anti-Semitic brutality. And we all pray for the speedy recovery of the wounded.
Israel is intended as a safe haven for Jews from all over the world where they can come and feel safe. And it is after you see an attack like this, an attack targeting Jews anywhere in the world, that you are reminded that there is still a need for that safe haven. Israel's President, Reuven Rivlin, also issuing a message, and he was in fact one of the first to put out a message at the end of the Sabbath here. I'll read you a part of it. It says, "We are thinking of our brothers and sisters, the whole house of Israel in this time of trouble, as we say in the morning prayers. We are thinking of the families of those who were murdered and praying for the quick recovery of those who were injured." Brooke, a few thousand miles separates Pittsburgh from Israel, but you're seeing that distance basically disappear as all of Israel tries to reach out, tries to help in some sort of way, to offer support, aid, prayers to the community of Pittsburgh. In fact, the Minister of Diaspora Affairs immediately left for Pittsburgh to see what he could do from Israel to the U.S., to Pittsburgh.
Amazing. I was talking to one of the community leaders and head of the Jewish paper in this Pittsburgh area, and he was saying to me that the vigil that they held tonight inside this Presbyterian church is the first of so many that are planned in that community. Can you tell me what events from your side of the, certainly your side of the sea, are planned to honor those lives lost in Pennsylvania?
I have no doubt that there will be certain events planned. It just happens simply quite late here on Saturday night, so we haven't seen notifications of those events yet. But in terms of where events like that might be, perhaps at the Western Wall Plaza, either some sort of organized event or people coming to offer their own personalized prayers. And then one of the more common places to hold an event, and it wouldn't surprise me at all if there was some sort of memorial, is in Tel Aviv's central Rabin Square. In fact, that's where the Tel Aviv Municipal Building is. When we see terror attacks around the world, the municipal building is lit up in the country, in the flag of the country of those attacks, and that's what we're seeing tonight. The Tel Aviv Municipal Building, the lights are alternating between the flag of the U.S. and the flag of Israel to show that Israel here stands in solidarity with the U.S. tonight.
4 o'clock in the morning where you are there. I'm sure as the sun begins to rise on Israel, we will learn much more about plans to honor those 11 lives lost in Pittsburgh. Oren Lieberman, for now, thank you so much. And just before we go to break here at CNN, I just want to take a moment for all of us to listen to the voices of this community, Squirrel Hill, as they talk about what happened today.
These incidents usually occur in other cities. Today, the nightmare has hit home here in the city of Pittsburgh.
This is the most horrific crime scene I've seen in 22 years with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. Members of the Tree of Life Synagogue, conducting a peaceful service in their place of worship, were brutally murdered by a gunman targeting them simply because of their faith.
My dad was indeed in the synagogue at the time that the active shooter entered the synagogue, and he, thank goodness, was able to escape.
This is a community that's strong, and we're here for each other, and we're going to get through this. But, you know, it's just one of those things you don't think is going to happen where you live.
You need both car and home insurance, so why not bundle them with Esurance and save up to 10%, which you can spend on things you really want to buy, like, well, I don't know what you'd want to buy because I'm just a guy on your TV.
Esurance. It's surprisingly painless.
Shop 30 styles of flannel at LL Bean.
Breakfast wants you back. Try Just Crack an Egg, packed with diced potatoes, veggies, meat, and cheese. Just add a fresh egg for a hot scramble in less than 2 minutes to get those warm, fuzzy feelings again. Take breakfast back. Find it in the egg aisle.
Up here at the Jewers Distillery, all our whiskies are aged, blended, and aged again. It's the reason our whiskey is so extraordinarily smooth. Jewers, double-aged for extra smoothness.
Nothing outlasts Energizer Ultimate Lithium. Hey, you can't do that. Can he do that?
Yeah, he's good.
Energizer Ultimate Lithium. It's the #1 longest lasting battery.
After transforming to meet the challenges of a digital world, never stop. After engineering 3D imaging technologies that help doctors quickly diagnose disease, never stop. And after advancing drug delivery technology expertise to help in the fight against cancer, never stop. And we'll never stop improving the future by building on our core innovations and over 80 years of experience. Never stop. Fujifilm, value from innovation.
On the next Parts Unknown.
So I'm ready anytime.
Go behind the scenes with the people who knew Tony best, the crew of Parts Unknown.
It really was the adventure of a lifetime.
New Anthony Bourdain Parts Unknown, tomorrow at 9 on CNN.
Closed captioning brought to you by OnlyMeso.com.
Mesothelioma, it's all we do. With 7 offices across the country, let us come meet with you. Call us at 1-800-213-8000.
This is CNN Breaking News.
Want to welcome our viewers here in the United States and all around the world. I'm Brooke Baldwin in New York. A special coverage of this just absolute heartbreak and tragedy in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. 11 people were killed, 6 wounded after a gunman opened fire on worshipers at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania earlier this morning. The FBI agent in charge calls it the most horrific crime scene he has ever witnessed. The Anti-Defamation League says it is likely the deadliest attack on the Jewish community in the history of the United States. Police say the suspect is 46-year-old Robert Bowers. His social media accounts littered with anti-Semitic and anti-immigrant views. He was arrested. He is alive, but he is wounded, shot several times by the officers, those Brava officers who ultimately took him down. A source tells CNN the gunman made anti-Jewish comments during the shooting and, in fact, even after he was arrested. But I want to play this chilling 911 dispatch audio for you. This is from first responders in the synagogue.
Okay, be advised, suspect's crawling. He's injured, not even 3 yards. SWAT's talking to him. Tell him to continue to crawl at this time. 7-1 suspect's talking about all these Jews need to die. We're still communicating with them. 9 radio. Okay, be advised, we got black jacket, red shirt at this time. We don't know if he changed clothes.
As the suspect keeps telling about killing Jews, he doesn't want any of them to live.
Yeah, right, I already relayed that. I'm on the other side of the stairs. Copy that.
This community, this Squirrel Hill community, those who live there, of course, just in mourning and in disbelief that this could possibly happen in a sanctuary.
With that in mind, and I talked to a lot of people who say they've lived here their whole life, that they know each other's kids, that they know each other's families. You say hi on the street corner, that this is a diverse community and it's a community that feels safe. And as you can imagine, they were absolutely stunned when this happened here in their community today. And I think it just really, it shook so many people. But again, they wanted to make sure that love was the message of the day, that coming together and unifying behind that was very important to them. Now, all of the candlelight vigil and all of this playing out as this investigation also continued tonight. We found out later this evening that the feds did go ahead and file those criminal charges, those hate crime charges against the suspected gunman in this case, 29 counts. in all. This as they continue, as you mentioned, to comb through his social media accounts, which were riddled with anti-Semitic messages. One such message that went out just minutes before that first police call today. But again, just so many people here who are grieving, who are affected personally by what happened today, and also those who don't know anyone personally who was affected today, but just are so deeply saddened that this could happen in their community, that this sort of behavior, that this horrible, horrific thing could happen right here in the neighborhood where they walk their kids, walk their dogs, and have spent much of their life. Brooke, tomorrow there is going to be a press conference in the morning. We're expected to learn more about the victims and, of course, more about those criminal charges, those hate crime charges that were filed this evening.
Yeah. So many heavy hearts across religions, just across the country and across the world tonight for this community where you're standing. Jessica Dean, thank you. In Pennsylvania, 6 people were wounded. Some of them were police officers who, of course, when everyone's running away, they're the ones bravely racing toward the scene, found themselves immediately in the thick of this gunfight. As for those who lost their lives, Pittsburgh officials told us that they will release the list of names tomorrow morning. CNN's Jean Casares is outside the hospital where those survivors are being treated tonight. Jean, tell me how they're doing.
We are outside one of the level 1 trauma centers here in Pittsburgh. It is the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center Mercy Hospital. There are 6 surviving victims in all of this. 2 of the 6 are in critical condition. We understand one is a 70-year-old male, multiple gunshot wounds affecting major organs. We know that he has undergone a second surgery, currently in critical condition. Another 55-year-old police officer in critical condition, once again, multiple gunshot wounds, this time to his extremities. We also know a 61-year-old female victim is in the hospital, level 1 trauma center. Also, another officer and a 27-year-old officer here at this particular trauma center. But some good news, one of the officers of law enforcement, they have been released from the hospital at this point. We also know that Sunday morning at 9:30, they will release the names of all that perished in this shooting, 11 fatal victims here in Pittsburgh. Jean Casares, CNN, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania.
As we wait for those names in the morning, Jean Casares, thank you. We did hear from the president today, President Trump mentioning this mass shooting at the Pittsburgh synagogue at both of his campaign rallies today. Our White House correspondent, Boris Sanchez, is in Murfreesboro, Illinois. And Boris, what was the president's message?
Brooke, President Trump acknowledged to supporters here in southern Illinois that he considered canceling tonight's rally, though earlier in the day he said that it was an obligation. This is one of more than a dozen stops the president has made in October campaigning for Republican candidates across the country. He ultimately told supporters here that he felt that he had to move forward because, quote, "we can't make evil people important." The president considered tonight's rally akin to September 11th, saying that the New York Stock Exchange opened one day after the September 11th terrorist attacks, something that is just factually inaccurate. The stock market actually took about a week to open after those attacks. Nevertheless, the president, for the second time in a week, called on Americans to unite in the face of domestic terror, saying that Americans have to come together to fight the scourge of anti-Semitism. Listen to more from the president.
There must be no tolerance for anti-Semitism in America or for any form of religious or racial hatred or prejudice.
One more note, Brooke. The president was asked as he was departing the White House whether he would consider supporting gun control legislation, something that would potentially prevent attacks like the one we saw in Pittsburgh. The president dismissed that idea. Instead, he had other thoughts. Listen to this.
This is a case where if they had an armed guard inside, they might have been able to stop him immediately. So this would be a case for if there was an armed guard inside the temple, they would have been able to stop him. Maybe there would have been nobody killed except for him, frankly. So it's a very, very, very difficult situation. And when you look at it, we can look at it two ways. But again, if they had somebody to protect people. Now, isn't it a shame that you even have to speak that way? Isn't it a shame that we even have to think of that inside of a temple or inside of a church? But certainly the results might have been far better.
It's not the first time we've heard the president suggest armed guards as a possible solution to shootings. We heard him say the same shortly after the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School shooting earlier this year in Parkland, Florida. The president clearly believing that having armed guards at places of worship or at schools is a better solution than passing gun control legislation, Brooke.
It's a question of how realistic that is. Boris, thank you very much. In Illinois, there's a lot to talk about. First, just on the investigation here with me, CNN law enforcement analyst Josh Campbell, who is a former supervisory special agent at the FBI. Also with us, Shimon Prokopez, CNN crime and justice reporter, and CNN legal analyst Michael Zeldin. So, gentlemen, let's begin with the newest piece of all of this and these 29 counts that he is now facing. Walk us through.
Right. So the big thing here, obviously, with these charges, that he's being charged with crimes of violence that are based upon the federal civil rights laws prohibiting hate crimes. So this is a hate crime. It's clear this is what the government is saying, and that's how he's charged. And then generally, it's just 11 counts of obstruction of exercise of religious belief, 11 counts of use of firearm. There's other counts here, but the bottom line is he's now officially arrested. He's now going to face court. He's going to be seeing a judge in Pittsburgh. Whether it's tomorrow or Monday, that remains to be seen. But that's it, you know, and this is all we really know right now, because the other documents that you usually get when someone is charged, like the criminal complaint, that has not been released yet by the U.S. Attorney's Office. And in that, we'll learn a lot more once we get those documents, which are going to be released tomorrow. In the morning at the press conference.
Let me come to you in just a second, but let me go straight to Michael Zeldin, to you, with your legal hat on here. I mean, we had heard from the Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, earlier today that they would be filing, this hate crime charge, and that, in fact, they have, in addition to a number of other charges. Is that the most significant here?
Absolutely. The charge of violating I think it was actually, when it was passed by Congress in 1996 and signed by Bill Clinton, I think it was called the Church Obstruction Act. It was related to church bombings, but it prohibits interfering with religious freedom, and it carries a maximum of death if death results from your act. So these are death-carrying charges. Section 247, which is what is the principal charge in this charging document, and the use of firearms cascade down from it. So yes, this is as serious a charge as one can bring in a hate crimes case, a death-carrying sentence. Whether they proceed with the death request is up to them, but the statute they're using does carry that if they want, or they can go with life in prison.
Let me remind everyone, before I come to you, Josh, as we talk about ultimate potential death penalty in this case, sitting right there, the head of the ADL, I don't think I can say this enough, ADL saying this was the most violent, the deadliest attack on Jewish people, the Jewish community, in the history of the United States. Just let that try to sink in. Go ahead, Josh.
No, it's obviously very serious, and I think that what these charges show is obviously there's what the U.S. government brings to bear legally and what the penalties will be, but I think it's also, there's a symbolic angle here as well, and that is the federal government, the Department of Justice, Attorney General Jeff Sessions. They're essentially saying that no, we will go after those who traffic in hate, who try to target people with violence, which is a very strong message to be sending. It'll be interesting to see if this becomes now part of some new shift or initiative. I mean, you take just the last week, what we've seen, these two incidents of serious violence that appear, at least on the surface, to have some type of political motivation or some type of hatred involved. Is this now going to be a new initiative? Each Department of Justice, as they come in, each new leadership, they can set the priority for the department about what they want their people to focus on. And it would be very interesting to see if the Department of Justice under Jeff Sessions and obviously under the president, if they look at this and say, okay, we have a problem here. This is something we need to focus more on. It's one thing to sit here and walk past a crime scene with victims and dead bodies and prosecute the person that did it. It's quite another thing to try to get out in front of these problems before they actually happen, to dedicate those resources to doing just that. And I'll say one last thing. We actually heard today from the FBI Agents Association, which we were speaking, CNN was talking to one of their spokesmen, people who actually renewed this call from the Agents Association to Congress, to the White House, to actually move forward on this domestic terrorism legislation. They cited this incident. They cited the incident with the package bombings. Yeah, there is no domestic terrorism statute right now. That's something they're trying to call on, and the reason they're saying that is they want the tools, the investigative tools, to be able to investigate these things, to be able to preempt this type of crime.
Welcome to America in 2018, when that's the kind of thing you need.
You can probably bet that this Attorney General, Jeff Sessions, and this Department of Justice will recommend the death penalty in this case. I'm sure of that.
We heard that already. Wasn't Trump alluding to that earlier today?
Basically, and he's, you know, it's Trump's Department of Justice right now. And really, Trump likes to say that that somehow would prevent something like this,
Can I say one quick note on that? So, because this has been bugging me all day. So what the president was saying today, he came out to the microphone just minutes after essentially we heard about this. We, had been covering it. Still a lot of facts that were unknown, but he was essentially saying that, look, it's hard to describe this. I mean, he's basically saying that we don't need due process, it seemed. He's saying that we need to speed things up, move straight to the gallows, for these kind of people, which obviously we all feel just that visceral response. It's a visceral
reaction, but you need due process.
But this country is based on the rule of law.
Yeah.
And again, people will debate the death penalty. That's a separate conversation just in general. But we have legal processes in place to ensure that there is justice, there is due process. Everyone wants people like these monsters that do this type of violence to face the swiftest and most serious justice as they can. I think what I'm distinguishing it from is kind of some of the chest beating. Okay, let's blast past all the norms and rules that our country is based on, that we are going to offer due process on one hand, which I kind of set aside. That's just bluster. But it will be interesting to see whether the Department of Justice actually prioritizes these types of crimes and moves forward with really throwing resources towards getting out in front of a lot of it.
Michael, do you want to jump in on that before I move on to where this suspect is right now? Go ahead.
I believe actually one of the priorities of the Attorney General has been religion and religion-related crimes. So I'm not sure, to Josh's point, I'm not sure that it isn't yet a priority. I think it is a priority of the administration. It's a matter of resources and then definitions. What are they going to determine to be a religious interference crime, and what priority will they be giving resources to enforce those things? But I think this will be a catalyst for Sessions to do what he has wanted to do all along, which is prosecute these types of cases.
Yep. And again, just as we sit here, and we were sitting here yesterday, and I know it's late on a Saturday night, but I can't not remind everyone the week that was with the two Black Americans killed in that grocery store in Kentucky, and then the pipe bombs. Obviously, these people targeted, many of them for their political views, critics of this president, and now, members of the Jewish faith clearly targeted because of what they believe. Just sit on that for a second. Lastly, his beliefs, Gab.com, for people, again, who are just sort of tuning in and learning about what has happened today, who this individual is. Yeah. Tell us more about his anti-Semitic rants online. So it's
clearly, anti-Jewish. He had issues with the caravan. He had issues with people who were supporting some of the immigration movement, the caravan, and, was in some ways pro-Trump. You can argue just on some of this stuff.
But he said he didn't vote for Trump. He doesn't like Trump because he surrounds himself with too many Jews.
But he had issues with the whole, the caravan. There were issues of...
That's right.
So the thing, it's become a treasure trove, really, for us to understand, and for law enforcement to understand what his mindset was, and where he was thinking, and how he was thinking. And also the post that he made a post just minutes before. He posted minutes before the attack, sort of, it was go time, right? Like, I'm going in.
Right.
So this, it's an interesting sort of platform for people to communicate on. They tout themselves as protecting free speech. And
they don't monitor, unlike Twitter and Facebook and other sites. If you put hate speech out, they're going to yank it down. And apparently this Gab.com, which many of us have never heard of until today, is a place for bigots, for extremists to...
Yeah, it's a platform for hate, essentially, or at least it allows that to go, to fester. And maybe this will be part of the effort. You know, Michael mentioned kind of maybe this catalyst that we see to become better, right, as a country, where we actually will look and see, okay, we all believe in First Amendment free speech, but if that, you know, comes up and runs up against inciting violence, that's something obviously we need to look at. If I can end just quickly with a positive note in the midst of tragedy. I think that one thing that we've seen so many of these types of tragedies, so many of these types of incidents, but the one thing that continues is obviously, you know, we have our leaders that will disagree with certain things that they do. We talk about the policies that we want them to implement, but the country is more than our leaders, right? And I think what we have seen, again, just to end on some positive note, if there is one, is that after each of these tragedies, one thing always holds true, and that is the country comes together to the extent that you have people looking here. People are mourning for the Jewish community today in the United States of America. And one thing that's always the commonality with these attacks is that the bad guy always loses. Yeah, he's killed people, and we mourn their loss. But let's look past that, and hopefully we can come together, you know, as a country and realize that, look, we are more than this. We're better than this. There may be hate that's festering out there, but this is the aberration. And then we all have that national conversation about how do we get past this and prevent this stuff from happening.
Just nobody wants the next one. Nobody wants the next one. Guys, I'm going to say thank you all so very much, Michael and Shimon and Josh. We have this just in also from the White House here. We'll show you live pictures. There it is. The president ordered the flags, half staff in honor of those synagogue shooting victims. Live pictures, the White House. We'll be right back.
Why didn't you book your family vacation on a travel site?
At Hilton.com, I get the price match guarantee, and I can choose from their 14 different hotel brands, so I get the right hotel for every member of my family. Like a DoubleTree for my cousins who love their warm chocolate chip cookies, a Homewood Suites for my uncle who likes a long stay, a Hampton for my sister and her kids,
It's a lot of syrup.
and the Waldorf Astoria Beverly Hills for me.
But I thought your family vacation was in Miami.
It is. I hear they're having a great time. Book at Hilton.com and get the Hilton price match guarantee. If you find a lower rate, we match it and give you 25% off that stay.
Are we there yet?
You don't always use your smartphone for directions
Okay, guys, out there.
or to laugh out loud.
You're in the middle. Yeah.
But when it matters most, you count on TracFone to keep you connected for less. Our smartphone plan gives you talk, text, and data with unlimited carryover starting at $15 a month. No contract. All with nationwide 4G LTE coverage. Get top smartphones or bring your own phone. TracFone for moments that matter.
Oh my gosh, I see it. Oh my gosh. It has a heartbeat.
Graduating from college.
Whether it's a big thing, small thing, or something unexpected, PNC will be right there when you need us. Because when it comes to your finances, if you focus on today, tomorrow has a way of working itself out. PNC. Make today the day.
Checkouts at 4 p.m. Plenty of time to enjoy your ride.
Explore more with a guaranteed 4 p.m. checkout at over 1,000 fine hotels and resorts. It's another way we've got your back. The Platinum Card from American Express. Don't live life without it.
A car you can command when you're nowhere near it. Does that require mind control? No. Just some mind-blowing engineers from the Ford Motor Company and Pivotal who developed Ford Pass, allowing you to reach out to your car from wherever you are to check your fuel level, unlock your doors, and start your engine. So when you're ready to go, your car is too. Magic can't make digital transformation happen, but we can. That's the power of Pivotal, part of Dell Technologies.
You need both car and home insurance, so why not bundle them with Esurance and save up to 10%, which you can spend on things you really want to buy, like, well, I don't know what you'd want to buy because I'm just a guy on your TV. Esurance, it's surprisingly painless.
There is a possibility that we might be able to communicate with Grandma.
Welcome back. You're watching CNN. I'm Brooke Baldwin. The ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, says they believe today's shooting at this Tree of Life synagogue in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, is the deadliest attack on the Jewish community in the history of the United States. 11 people were killed, 11 all adults. We're told 6 others were injured. This is being treated as a hate crime, with the source telling CNN that the gunman made anti-Semitic comments as he opened fire, and in fact after he was arrested. His social media accounts, as we were just discussing, were full of these anti-Semitic and also anti-immigrant views. That said, I really want to focus in on this community, Squirrel Hill in Pittsburgh. Zachary Weiss is with me on the phone. His father, Stephen, was actually inside the synagogue when the gunman opened fire. So Zachary, I don't even know if I have the full, just words to express our deepest sympathies to your community, to the Jewish community, for this heinous crime that happened in this synagogue. How are you holding up? How is your family? How's your dad?
It's been duct tape today. It's really been what the day's been, what it's been, to be honest with you, Brooke. And we really appreciate speaking. I don't want to speak necessarily on behalf of the congregation, but the outpouring of love and support, not just citywide, statewide, but really worldwide. It's nice to see, unfortunate that it's in this instance, but it's nice to see that there's been so much support and outpouring, and we obviously ask that extends beyond today and beyond tomorrow and beyond the days to come. But it's been tough. My father, fortunately, was able to make it back home. He is 100% healthy. He's safe, unharmed. The real savior of the day was all those who sacrificed in one way, form, or another, and the fact that there was an active shooter training that was put into place last year that a lot of people, including my father, took, which really was able to help in the event of this tragic active shooter incident.
That's what we had heard, that you all practiced. You practiced an active shooter drill, and you had to, you were prepared for what happened today. I was talking to the head of the ADL earlier, and he had spoken to people that there was a bris happening this morning. Was there a baby boy all part of this? What happened?
Well, there's been a lot of confusion in regards to this, and my answer to that is this: that the synagogue is called Tree of Life or the Simcha, but there are also 2 other synagogues that rent space in the synagogue. So at the same time, there were 2 services, one of which was from the Tree of Life, and then there was another separate service from another synagogue called Dor Chadash. And then New Light did, in fact, have a bris. So there was a bris, a third event that was also occurring at the synagogue. And between the 3 synagogues, it would be fair to guesstimate probably about 30 to 40 individuals who were at the synagogue at the time.
Understand. What did your father share with you that you feel comfortable sharing with us?
It all felt like slow motion. I think the first thing that occurred was he heard a loud noise, and a couple of congregants went to investigate the loud noise because it was quite possible that maybe a senior citizen had a horrific fall, or maybe there was some kind of material or something at the synagogue which caused a loud noise. And when a couple of the congregants went down, the noise was unmistakable. From then on forward, it was treated like an active shooter situation. And my dad was actually not supposed to be there. The family was actually supposed to be on vacation, and it was canceled. And at the 11th hour, my dad, who's been a 29-year member of the Tree of Life or the Simcha congregation, and has worn many hats during that process, which as well many others have, was called in to assist the rabbi, who also was feeling a little under the weather, and they both helped lead the Tree of Life portion of that congregation for the service. And when everything occurred with the active shooter situation, following that Alice training, which was the security measure that I mentioned in the previous answer, they were able to hide in place, and then my dad was able to go down to the bris and make sure they were aware, which they were already hiding. When he was upstairs, he explained to me as he was headed up, he saw casings moving, and he expressed that he was roughly 5 feet away from the moving casings, but did not get a clear image of the gunman. And he was able to go back to the Tree of Life congregation and saw that they were hidden. He couldn't really find anybody, and I'm not sure how familiar you are, Brooke, with the ALICE acronym, but the E stands for evacuate, and when Dad saw that everybody was hidden in place, he did that evacuation, and he was able to safely evacuate himself from the synagogue.
Thank goodness. Zachary, last question. A lot of people learning about this Squirrel Hill community tonight. What do you want the world to know about you?
I want the world to know about the Squirrel Hill Squirrel Hill community, that we're a very loving and together community. And this is one of the safest neighborhoods, if not the safest, in the city of Pittsburgh. And this was a tragic accident. And, well, I wouldn't consider it an accident, but it was very, very tragic what happened and what unfolded from the morning and going on through. And please do not, I would advise the viewership not to forget this moment, not today, not tomorrow, and not moving forward, because unfortunately incidents like these are becoming all too familiar to our society. And however that needs to change, that needs to change. And this awareness is definitely an important step, and I appreciate the platform and that happening. And although others in the congregation might not be speaking as much right now, I know that they appreciate the support as well, and they continue to ask for that support.
Wow. Zachary, how old are you?
I am 26.
26. I'm so glad your father, I'm glad your father's okay. I'm just, our deepest condolences for your community. Zachary, thank you.
I appreciate that, and I'm glad my brother and my mother and we're all safe. We have a happy ending, but there's at least 11 others that don't, and I'm definitely thinking about them and the injured as well.
We all are. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up here on CNN, investigators are searching the suspect's house, trying to find more clues. We'll hear from some of his neighbors next.
For that, in just a second, we also have the Mendez mediation, and Brian is going to take the lead. Just follow his. Hello. No, I need a ring.
Success is a numbers game, and you're not going to win if you keep telling yourself to wait. The more often that you choose courage, the more likely you'll succeed.
The most inspiring minds, the most compelling stories. Download Audible and listen for a change.
This is not a video game. This is not a screensaver. This is the destruction of a cancer cell by the body's own immune system, thanks to medicine that didn't exist until now, and today can save your life.
Real people steal people. They want real power, real options, and real value. This fall, get a real solution. Get a steal. On the next Parts Unknown.
So I'm ready anytime.
Go behind the scenes with the people who knew Tony best, the crew of Parts Unknown.
The number one question I get at parties, did you eat all the stuff that Tony ate?
Never before seen footage and stories from around the world.
Are you filming?
Getting a 6-person crew to the South Pole was one of the hardest.
Take two? We don't do take twos.
It really was the adventure of a lifetime.
New Anthony Bourdain Parts Unknown, tomorrow at 9 on CNN.
I'm not ready to lose my hair. Not now. But I never thought there was a real solution. Now I use Keeps, the easiest way to keep my hair. And I can get my treatment without leaving the couch. Go to Keeps.com to learn more.
When you rent a car on Turo, you're renting from a real person. No shuttle rides, no waiting in line, and no wandering a car lot. This is better than your typical car rental. This is Turo. Download the app today.
Are the credit cards in your wallet actually the best ones for you? At NerdWallet, we sort through hundreds of credit cards to find the top cards for balance transfer, travel, earning rewards, and other perks. Using your unique info to narrow the search, NerdWallet makes it easy to find credit cards that work harder than the ones you have now. Stop missing out. Visit nerdwallet.com to find the cards that are made for you.
Anderson Cooper 360, Monday night at 8 Eastern on CNN.
Investigators are trying to learn more about the Pittsburgh shooter here. Federal agents converged on this apartment complex where he lived. Miguel Marquez is outside his home. And Miguel, you tell me what we see behind you.
Yeah, federal agents have been going through his apartment just behind me for many, many hours now. They took no chances, though. They sealed off the neighborhood. They moved the bomb squad in to make sure that there was nothing that could endanger them as they went about their work. And then for the last several hours, members of the FBI and ATF have been in that apartment, going in and out, bringing some things out, taking gear in as they go through piece by piece and try to form a portrait of this man and look for evidence of what he did as well. Neighbors saying, I've spoken to several of them now. One of them said, saw the car come and go, didn't really know him at all. Another said, talked to him a couple of times, fine. One guy said, well, he seemed not unfriendly, didn't seem friendly. We'd wave every now and again. Said that his fiance told him that he was a truck driver and that he was a fairly normal guy that kind of kept to himself. The only thing that he thought was odd is that he would watch TV at a very loud volume at odd hours. Said that he was here for a few days, gone for others. Mr. Bowers seemed to have not only this residence, but several in the area over the last several years. But for as quiet as he was in his home life, he was certainly more vocal online, posting about the caravan that is making its way from Central America and his anger at that, at a Jewish refugee resettlement organization, HIAS, or the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society, and his anger at that. They were down at the border, made a video down there. He keyed on that, and then moments before going in to that synagogue saying, I can't sit by and watch my people get slaughtered. Screw your optics. I'm going in. Brooke?
It's incredible, though, because of everything he wrote on this social media site, the treasure trove that law enforcement have, despite the fact that he wasn't known to law enforcement, no criminal history that we know of. Miguel Marquez, thank you so much there at his home in Pittsburgh. You know, the past 72 hours in this country have been filled with tragic rhetoric and worse, hateful actions just beyond comprehension. And if you are asking, like I am, like so many people are, what is going on in America? You are not alone. So let's try and put this in perspective. Coming up next.
Minimums and fees, they seem to be the very foundation of your typical bank. Capital One is anything but typical. That's why we designed Capital One Cafes. You can get savings and checking accounts with no fees or minimums, and one of America's best savings rates. To top it off, you can open one from anywhere in 5 minutes. This isn't a typical bank. This is banking reimagined. What's in your wallet?
Who knew?
Yeah. So you're with the UPS store?
Yes. In fact, we printed these right here.
Oh, I thought you guys just did shipping.
No, we do printing, packing, faxing, notarizing, shredding, mailboxing, copying, taping, binding, consulting, designing, returning, storing, grading. Oh, and of course, shipping.
So you're into shipping?
We also do printing, packing, faxing.
Come into the UPS.
Saturday Shabbat services, killing 11 people, 11, and wounding 6 others. This is what the last 3 days in America looked like. Fear and terror and violence. CNN presidential historian Tim Naftali is with me now. And again, the ADL saying they believe this is the deadliest attack on the Jewish community in the history of the United States. What is going on?
Well, Brooke, it's a sad thing to say, but it's true, that anti-Semitism is like the canary in the mine shaft for our country.
How do you mean?
When we are heading, or we are in, moments of a lot of hate and intolerance, you see a spike in anti-Semitic behavior. The American First movement in the 1930s what Tutsi would feel in Rwanda if someone, a Hutu again, said kill all Tutsis. It's the way that the Herero people and the Nama people in today's Namibia would feel. It's the way that Armenians feel. And it's the way that...
Thank you for that.
It's a terrible day for this country.
Tim Naftali, thank you. The Jewish community in Pittsburgh and all around the country, all around the world, really, in mourning tonight. So coming up next, I'll talk to a former rabbi at this Tree of Life synagogue, who's been there for 7 years. He'll talk about how his community is coping. They're devastated.
The sun comes up, the sun goes down. You run those miles, squeeze the toothpaste from the bottom, and floss to set a good example. You fine-tune the proposal, change the water jug so no one else has to, get home for dinner, and feed the cat. You did a million things for your family today. But speaking to PNC to help handle all your investments was a very important 1,000,001. PNC, make today the day.
Check-out's at 4 p.m. Plenty of time to enjoy your ride.
Explore more with a guaranteed 4 p.m. checkout at over 1,000 fine hotels and resorts. It's another way we've got your back. The Platinum Card from American Express. Don't live life without it.
What does it take to make digital transformation actually happen? It takes Dell Technologies, a family of 7 technology leaders working behind the scenes to make the impossible reality. We're helping to give cars the power to read your mind from anywhere. And we're helping up to 40% of the nation's donated blood supply to be redirected to the people that need it most. Magic can't make digital transformation happen, but we can.
A country divided, a critical election, a crucial question. Who will win the chance to shape America's future? 36 governorships, 35 Senate races, 435 House races. This election night, the stakes could not be higher, and the only place to watch is CNN. Election Night in America. Special live coverage Tuesday, November 6th on CNN.
How do you feel when someone is looking over your shoulder? Not all snoopers can be seen. Cyber criminals can steal your sensitive information. Hackers can intercept your data on public Wi-Fi. But not with the NordVPN app. It helps protect your privacy by encrypting your online data. And it's so easy to use. NordVPN, your shield from online snoopers. Download and enjoy trusted internet security and privacy.
When you rent a car on Turo, you're renting from a real person. No shuttle rides, no waiting in line, and no wandering a car lot. This is your rental counter. And this is you, already on the road. With Turo, this is compact, standard, and full size. This is better than your typical car rental. This is Turo. Download the app today.
The original idea for this commercial was to show a step-by-step breakdown of how these Warby Parker glasses were made. From designing them in-house, to creating the cellulose acetate, to hand-assembling the frame. But we kind of got held up on this beautiful shot of them getting hand-buffed on a polishing wheel. Mesmerizing, isn't it? Anyway, our glasses start at $95, including prescription lenses. Try 5 pairs for free at warbyparker.com.
This is CNN, the most trusted name in news.
while this investigation continues into this alleged killer's motivation. This man posted a number of anti-Semitic statements on social media. Chuck Diamond was the rabbi at the Tree of Life Synagogue until last year. He joins us live. And Rabbi Diamond, my sincerest condolences to you, and I know you have been out there all day long. You live in this community. You were the rabbi for this synagogue for 7 years. How did you first hear about this?
Well, Brooke, thank you. I was at home, and I got a call from somebody a few minutes after, I think, while it was still happening, and somebody said, "Did you hear what happened at the tree?" And then I started getting texts and emails, and I decided that I could be of some help maybe to get outside. I live a couple blocks from the synagogue, and I just wanted to get out and comfort people as best I could.
And it's my understanding, Rabbi Diamond, when the shooting started, it was during Shabbat services. But do you know, was there a bris taking place as well?
You know, I heard that story, but I have not confirmed it, so I'm not sure. There was a bris at another synagogue, and I suspect maybe it was mixed up, but I really don't know for sure.
Okay. I know
the shooting.
Go ahead, sir. Go ahead.
The shooting took place at about, I think, 8:45 is when services start. And there are 3 congregations who share the space. It's a beautiful building. And so at the beginning of services, there aren't a lot of people there, I have to say. And that was, I guess, fortunate for the people who come later.
Sure.
But I knew exactly who would be there, the regulars who always come, who you can depend on. And unfortunately, some of them didn't make it out alive.
I wanted to ask you about that, and of course, I don't want to get ahead of law enforcement. I know that they'll be identifying the victims, we've heard, tomorrow morning, but,
yes.
but you know some
right.
of those lives lost, and
yes.
what can you share?
Well, I think they're good people.
Yeah.
There was one elderly woman in her 90s who would come with a smile on her face every single week, no matter what the weather. I believe her daughter was shot, but is doing okay. There was another man who the synagogue was his home since he was a kid, and the synagogue took care of him, and he was always there to greet people when they came in. Whenever I would go to services when I was the rabbi, he was always there to greet me. And they're just good people in all 3 congregations. And unfortunately, it's just such a tragedy, as you know, Brooke.
You know, for people, Rabbi Diamond, who've actually never stepped foot in a synagogue, I mean, it's a house of worship. It is a sanctuary. It is a safe space. For people who've never heard the mourner's Kaddish, for example, can you just,
right.
It's a Jewish prayer that marks the death of a loved one. Can you just, in your own words,
right.
how egregious this attack was?
Well, sanctuary says it all. This is a sanctuary. We have sanctuaries that we want to feel safe in, not only synagogues and churches, but our schools as well. And we don't feel safe there. When I was a rabbi, I felt a great responsibility for the congregation. And I have to say, I always thought in recent times, in the back of my mind, something like this happening. And it's just a terrible state we live in. You guys have to cover this too many times.
Agree. And this is your community.
And I also want to say...
Please, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, I just wanted to say also that the first responders and the people, the law enforcement, just so brave and do such a good job. And I tell you, the news people I've talked to have just been comforting, and you also do a good job. So I just wanted to state that because of the times we live in today. Appreciate it.
I appreciate you. And just lastly, it was your community, your literal community, your Jewish community was attacked because of your beliefs. What do you want to communicate to your community tonight?
Well, first of all, Pittsburgh is a wonderful city, and the Jewish community is great. I believe all parts of the Jewish community get along together, and I feel that we were all attacked. I spoke to other rabbis from other movements within Judaism, and we feel like personally violated, and I believe the people in Pittsburgh feel personally violated too. This isn't necessarily about just being Jewish, although clearly it seems to be an anti-Semitic act, but it's against humanity and what is good in humanity. And I think that, I'm tired of throwing up my hands when things like this happen and saying, what can we do? I think we need to take some sort of action. I hope our leaders are leaders and take action. There's a lot involved in this issue. I think for the short term, we have to provide comfort for those in the community, and we have to watch each other's back, and we have to be there for each other.
It is sad that this is America in 2018. Rabbi Chuck Diamond, thank you so much.
Hard to believe.
Hard to believe, indeed.
Thank you, Brooke,
Thank you. Also, last hour, I talked to the CEO of the ADL, the Anti-Defamation League, Jonathan Greenblatt, and he told me about how he was learning of this tragic, tragic news as he himself was walking out of Shabbat services this morning. Here he was.
This is the most lethal and violent attack on the Jewish community in America in the history of this country.
Just stop for a second on that. That is profound and profoundly sad.
It is sad. And Brooke, it will be more sad tomorrow as the stories of the victims come out. And what I've heard already is heartbreaking. And I think first and foremost, our thoughts need to go out to the families and the victims who went into a synagogue to worship, who went into a synagogue to pray. And there was a bris taking place. You know, this is the ceremony.
There was a bris.
That's right. There was
ceremony.
A bris.
Go ahead and explain what a bris is.
When a boy baby is born, a male baby is born, 8 days into its life, it's brought to the synagogue for a service where the baby gets its name. And at this moment of hope, suddenly there was this act of horror where a man ran into the synagogue with automatic weapons and murdered in cold blood 11 people. Whose only crime, of course, whose only offense, of course, was that they were Jewish and that they were praying. So it's hard to imagine something more despicable and I think just very sad overall. And make no mistake, it's an attack on the Jewish community, but it's an attack on our country. These are all our values. These are all our children. This is any one of us.
I was just talking to a friend whose mother is afraid of stepping foot in a synagogue now. What is your message as these moms and dads were at Shabbat services this morning where anyone was allowed in on a Saturday morning? What is your message to the Jewish community tonight?
Yeah, Brooke, I learned about this incident when I walked out of my own synagogue this morning, and I looked at my phone as I walked out the door. So, but I will tell you this, we cannot let the white supremacists, we cannot let the bigots and the haters win. So we need to introduce security protocols at all of our synagogues and any house of worship, as I said before. And we need our leaders to lead and to call this out when it happens, immediately, intentionally, and honestly.
What do you want them to say, specifically?
To say that hate has no place in our country. To say that we can't imagine a world in which this country isn't appreciated for what it is, the most diverse, the most enriched country in the world. And I think our Jewish community, along with our Muslim community, along with our Sikh community, along with all of our Christian and those who don't even worship, we're all in this together. And I wish that our elected leaders would remind us of that and turn down the rhetoric. That's what we need.
That was Jonathan Greenblatt, the head of the ADL. And thank you so much for being with me these last 3 hours with our CNN special coverage. I'm Brooke Baldwin. Anthony Bourdain, Parts Unknown, is next.
Nothing outlasts Energizer Ultimate Lithium. Hey, you can't do that. Can he do that?
Yeah, he's good.
Energizer Ultimate Lithium. It's the #1 longest lasting battery.
Are we there yet?
You don't always use your smartphone for directions.
Okay, guys, out there.
Or to laugh out loud.
They're in the middle. Yeah.
But when it matters most, you count on TracFone to keep you connected for less. Our smartphone plan gives you talk, text, and data with unlimited carryover starting at $15 a month. No contract. All with nationwide 4G LTE coverage. Get top smartphones or bring your own phone. TracFone for moments that matter.
Shop 30 styles of flannel at LL Bean.
Discovery. No, just a sec.
What would it look like if we listened more? Could the right voice, the right set of words, bring us all just a little closer? Get us to open up, even push us further? It could, if we took the time to listen. The most inspiring minds, the most compelling stories. Download Audible and listen for a change.
Hi kids, I'm Carl and I'm a broker.
Do you offer $4.95 online equity trades?
Great question. See, for a full-service brokerage like ours, that's tough to do.
Schwab does it.
Next question.
Do you offer a satisfaction guarantee?
A what now?
A satisfaction guarantee, like Schwab does.
What are you teaching these kids?
Ask your broker if they offer award-winning full service and low costs backed by a satisfaction guarantee. If you don't like their answer, ask again at Schwab.
The first time that I was up on a high-rise cleaning a window, I was terrified. But once I made it to the ground, I was hooked. I needed to do it again. That moment when you're going over the edge is like getting on a rocket that's going to Mars. I need to be clear-minded, and I have to feel my best to be able to do my best. At my age, cholesterol is a risk factor. So my doctor told me that I should watch what I eat, and he recommended also that I take an aspirin every day. Teamwork is everything. I couldn't do it without my team, and definitely can't imagine doing anything else.
An aspirin regimen can help prevent another heart attack or ischemic stroke. Be sure to talk to your doctor before you begin an aspirin regimen.
Smile, Dad.
I take medication for high blood pressure and cholesterol, but they may not be enough to protect my heart.
Adding Bayer aspirin can further reduce the risk of another heart attack.
Because my second chance matters.
Be sure to talk to your doctor before you begin an aspirin regimen.
Closed captioning brought to you by OnlyMeso.com.
Mesothelioma, it's all we do. With 7 offices across the country, let us come meet with you. Call us at 1-800-213-8000.
Man, that's good. Man, that is good. Yeah. No, that's good. Oh, man, really good. It's really good, by the way. This is good. So good. Beautiful. It's amazing. Oh, it's fantastic. Oh, man. There we go. Life is good.
I took a walk through this beautiful world. Felt the cool rain on my shoulder. Found something good in this beautiful world. I felt the rain getting colder. Sha-la-la-la-la, sha-la-la-la-la-la, sha-la-la-la-la, sha-la-la-la-la-la. Alô, bateria nota 1000! Arrepia, Brasil!
Chances are you have never been here. In fact, it is likely that you may never have even heard of this place. Tourists don't really come here. There are few hotels, no major attractions. The state of Minas Gerais, Brazil. It's about the size of France, covered by farmland, mountains, and savanna. Belo Horizonte is the capital, a center for the Brazilian banking and tech industry. A planned city, built in the late 1800s. 5 million people live in the metropolitan area. It's one of the fastest growing cities in Brazil, in the world in fact. Yet it's still relatively unknown to the outside world. But if you travel through Brazil and you talk about food, which I have and I do, you hear about this place. You hear about it seemingly a lot. I've been told time and again, this is where the best chefs come from. The question is, why don't you hear that outside of Brazil? Why hasn't the cuisine of Minas caught on worldwide?
The spots here are made of chalkstone. My grandmother still cooks on them.
Oh, yeah.
If you go to her place, you got a lot of those.
Chef Leo Pachal is also asking that question. Born and raised here, he grew up cooking traditional Miniera cuisine and went on to study in France under the likes of Jules Robuchon. Now he's back with his own place, Glouton.
So we are at the central market at Belo Horizonte. Minas Gerais is the central state, and we share with every other state around. So it's very democratical here. The people come here, they can have a haircut, they can buy like live-in chicken or a good cheese from France.
If Minas is the heart of Brazilian cooking, then the Mercado Central is the heart of Minas. It's the place where everybody shops, including chefs like Leo, who are focused on giving Mineiro's products the attention they deserve.
This is a country where there's a lot of fruit that I've never seen outside of Brazil.
Yeah.
A lot of it's super perishable, too. Like, even if you wanted to export it, it just doesn't really last.
We're getting to picky season now.
Oh, yeah.
And people get like overwhelmed by it. They eat it like
every
day.
The infamous pequi, loved and hated in equal measure. It's described by both camps as tasting sweaty or like a barnyard. And if you bite too deep, you get a mouthful of hundreds of nanospikes requiring professional extraction.